coming up on Man Enough.
It is so much easier to live from hate than it is to operate from community, love. You have the thousands and the millions by the masses saying, it's not fair, I want this, Andrew Tate's right, Trump is right. I am interested in spaces for healthy disruption.
They have to be people that will hold us accountable. I don't mean echo chambers. I mean spaces where you're being challenged,
yes.
Healthy conflict,
Safety
safety to do
conflict.
work, which means at the end of it, someone holds me accountable.
Being man enough, what does that mean?
It's really manly to mess up, admit you're wrong, and then grow.
I couldn't accept that I was evil, so maybe I'm broken, but those broken things could be corrected.
Intimacy between a father and a son is me just wanting to put my head in your lap.
I love you, son.
You haven't called me benevolent sexist, but my experience is women are better.
Even if it's a positive, it's still not equality.
I don't blame men for that. I just blame the system.
This
Is
Man enough.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Man Enough. We are here, just the three of us, right?
It
We
is.
got me,
Just the
and we
three
got
of us.
Liz, and we got Chris Rivas. No Justin Baldoni.
No.
We miss Justin always, of course. But if Justin's not going to be here, and Andy Grammer's not going to be here, because we've had Andy as our guest host as well, then we would have no other person but Chirstopher Rivas.
Or Andy Grammer. As the list goes on.
And the 10 other people we called before you.
Yeah.
You are the host of your podcast, Brown Enough, also the name of your book. And you are an artist, author, of course, a man of color. Tell us, just give us a little glimpse of who you are.
Before all that, I am a New Yorker. I'm from Queens, born and raised. It's the most diverse place in the world. That is actual facts. So I know the beauty and the power and the importance of culture and variety and putting it all in one space. I come from many delicious flavors, and I'm grateful for them all.
Well, here we are. We what we do is we like to have deep conversations, personal conversations, but with data, of course. Oftentimes we have guests on that share their perspectives, and we learn from them. Hopefully they might learn a thing or two from us. And we try to undefine or redefine what it means to be man enough. And there's a lot with that, right? There's so many other things that come about. Race, of course, and sexism, of course, is patriarchy is at the root of all this. But also we want to be better, just as individuals, so that the whole can be better. And we thought we would have an episode with just the three of us, and we could just talk about that, what that means to all of us, right?
Yeah.
I know that one of the things that comes up is safe places. You have a problem with that term, I think. Maybe we could hear about that.
Let's start. Is safe space problematic?
I think anything that is used to sell you something is problematic, like authenticity, like anything that's being put in like a brand statement or invest in us because we do this is something you should think about or challenge. I'm not saying we don't need safe spaces. I am saying it is often used in branding now, like as a marketing tool. And that, to me, is dangerous. So if we do want to talk about safe spaces, like let's break down safety and let's break down space. Like, let's actually consider what it means to be in community, in purpose, and things like that before we get to the word safe space.
I hear that. I appreciate that. I also fear that serves as a distraction in semantics. Because I think the term, when I hear safe spaces, while I know it's triggering, or maybe not triggering, but elicits another thing, at the root of it, we're saying, where is a place that we can speak freely and not be judged, not be criticized for our authentic feelings, some that might be accurate, some that are inaccurate, and where can I have that? Hopefully, being at home with your parents is a safe space that you can cry and not be ridiculed. That's a safe space. We want it to be. Hopefully I can tell you something that's dear to me and have it be safe. So really what we're just saying is how do we create those places and spaces for us to do it in a community level, for men to do it, for women to do it, for children, people of color to do it, like places like for me who's been in 12-step programs, where can I feel safe to say that I've struggled with this and not be judged? That's ultimately what we're saying. But I do know that there's other thing attached to it, like what you just expressed. But I don't want that to then be that now that becomes the conversation, the words itself versus the idea of what we're trying to create. You know. You're listening to the Man Enough podcast. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, I got a question for you. Who out there owns a business? Or who's running a business? Come on, don't be shy. I know we've got some CEOs out there. And if you own a business or running one, chances are you're shipping something, or at least you should be. In today's world, keeping your business competitive is as easy as ever thanks to ShipStation. When you use ShipStation, you can lower shipping costs, make returns easy, and keep your customers happy. And with all the time you save from automating your shipping tasks, you can keep your business growing all year long. Now, at Man Enough and Wayfair, we offer merch to listeners like yourselves, and it's important that we get it to you guys quickly and for the lowest shipping price possible. You only have a few seconds to capture a customer's attention, and using a service like ShipStation helps you select the most efficient mail carriers so that your customers in turn pay less. ShipStation makes it easy to grow your business by handling your orders from every marketplace in one simple dashboard. And with the best rates in the industry, ShipStation hooks you up with industry-leading discounts so you'll never worry about overpaying for shipping. Get up to 84% off USPS and UPS rates. And if that's not enough, use my promo code to try ShipStation free for 2 months. Over 130,000 companies have grown their e-commerce businesses with ShipStation, and 98% of companies that stick with ShipStation for a year become customers for life. Keep growing your business all year long with ShipStation. Use promo code MANENOUGH today at ShipStation.com to sign up for your free 60-day trial. That's ShipStation.com, promo code MANENOUGH. All right, welcome back to the Man Enough podcast.
I do think that the term safe space has been now like oversaturated and it, you know, even the term, I think, trigger warning, like trigger warning doesn't really mean anything anymore because everything is supposed to come with a trigger warning. And so I think that we've lost the meaning of that. You know, I was like on a date a year ago and someone said something that I felt was so offensive. And, you know, the person was making a comment about gender theory being taught to elementary school students. And how, you know, you can be too young to learn about some of this stuff. And at the time, I was like, that is so transphobe. I can't believe I'm on a date with a transphobic person. I'm now implicitly involved in this horrible crime, right? Like, I felt really, you know, I also immediately, like, shut that person out of my life. I was like, there's no way that we could ever, you know, get along. And now a year later, like, I feel like I haven't changed my mind entirely on that position, but I do think that, you know, that my sister teaches elementary school students. I have a lot of friends who have kids, and what I'm hearing from a lot of parents, even very progressive parents, is like 90% of the kids are bisexual, like in her class. And it's like 90% of them can't be bisexual, or maybe they are, but like they're, you know, 8 years old. And is that really, I think it's a real question. Like, should we even be using the term cishet white male with kids who are 6 or 7, 8 years old, who aren't actually like equipped to have some of these conversations? And it's not that we should shelter them. It's not that we should teach them the opposite, right? I think we need to teach them the truth, but an acknowledgement. Anyway, sorry, this is like the most ADHD share of all time, but it made me reflect on my own inability to tolerate someone who doesn't agree with me. And my entitlement to this idea that somehow I'm not like supposed to come into contact with people who are going to say things that I don't agree with or that are offensive. And I don't think we have a right to that. And I think when we walk around thinking we have a right to that, we end up isolating ourselves. And what we're seeing across the board is a lot, you know, we talk about men and boys being isolated, women too. You know, I think it's 1 in 4 women under the age of 35 who's single hasn't had sex in over 3 years. Like it's not, you know, you do go like, okay, what's going on here? But at what point does the idea of a safe space create a barrier for us to be in a space altogether, and to be in community with other people, and that by virtue of being in community with other people, you are like accepting that there are going to be people who are different from you.
To be in healthy conflict with other people.
Yeah.
I guess that's my problem with safe space. I'm more interested in the space. Like, this is a space where you can be yourself, but also meet other people who are themselves, and we can have healthy debate, healthy challenges, healthy conflict. Like, when I walk into a coffee shop in Silver Lake and it's full of a bunch of white people, am I safe? Sure. No harm's going to happen to me. Am I comfortable? Not always. That's not my space, but am I safe? Yeah. So technically it's a safe space, right? There's a non-gender bathroom, safe space. Like, there are a couple signs up that say Black Lives Matter. Sure, safe space, but really? Is it my space? No. So I guess when I challenge safe space, which I still do, and semantics, because they language, they matter. Like, space precedes everything, and then it's language. It's the semantics. Like, I'm interested in spaces for healthy disruption, healthy conflict. I'm interested in spaces where the egg can be cracked so the baby chick can be born into a new world. Right? Like, disruption and conflict allow us to be born into a new world. And those are the spaces I'm more interested in. Like, nurturing spaces for healthy disruption and healthy conflict.
Well, that to me then is what you just described is a safe space. The other one that you had said, if there's a bunch of white people in a coffee shop, technically you're safe. We're not talking about safety in terms of your physical well-being, right? But if we're talking about conversations, then all those things you just mentioned have to be there in order for me to be considered a safe space. I need spaces. So I feel like we are talking, you know what I've noticed? I have a tick. I do this a lot. Has anybody noticed that? In between things.
You just
and
discovered that?
my throat. No, I've noticed it just recently, like in the last month or so. So I just did it right there. So I feel safe in this space right now to say it.
Gosh.
Now everyone's going to listen for it. But see right there. For me, I believe the reason why we are doing this podcast and having these discussions right now is not just to like fill the air with words. It's because we want results. We want the world to look different. We want our children, our communities' children, right? Our next generations, and of course ours. But we want the world to progress. We want it to be safe and free of judgment and inequalities. So in order to do that, we can't just fight, right? We can't have spaces where people are arguing back and forth and neither one of them are hearing each other. We have to do it in a healthy conflict, is what you had said. But I also think they have to be framed and moderated with a spirit that there's framework and parameters. Like, so what is the purpose of this? The purpose is so that we can advance. Not just so that you can just like complain about women or complain about black people or whatever it is. That's not it. I mean, sure, you might have something you got to get out and you can have a moment. Right. But the purpose of it is to get you from one stage to the next, us from one stage to the next. That has to be to learn. So the safe spaces that I'm involved in with men, there's a few men's groups that I'm involved in, is that we have these parameters very clear. The reason why we're here is for this reason, so that our instruments can then, I always use this phrase about, the world is made up of all these different things, the horns and the strings and the percussion and voices and keyboards and all this stuff.
Are you a horn?
I'm a keyboard player.
You're a keyboard?
Sure, but let's call me a horn.
What are you?
I'm sitting, just clapping and enjoying the
right, so
show.
you're part of the choir. But sometimes each group needs to get together amongst themselves and practice and work out their kinks. The horns have to okay, are you right? Is the reed correctly right? Are we in tune with one another? So that we can then come back to the orchestra and share our voice in unison and worked out along with the others. The whole point is to be together. But sometimes we get together by ourselves. And if the purpose of the horns is to get together so that we can outshine the rest of the group and complain about the strings and complain about the choir, that's not good.
Right.
So you have to say, why are we getting together? So that we can be more in tune for the betterment of all.
So what's that mission explicitly for these men's groups, for people who are listening?
Sure. So the
who
men
want to start their own.
So for men, which I think we don't do enough of, but how do you find a group of people that you can share? I'm scared. I don't know how to show up exactly because my wife or my girlfriend or my sister or the world expects me to be this, but I also have this. Also, I have trouble with women, and I can't say that. How can I say that I think women are too this and this and this and this? They might be wrong, my thought, but if I feel it and I don't get to say it, how then can it be addressed?
Yeah.
So I have to be able to say to people that are trustworthy enough that they're not just going to we're not going to jump on the bandwagon and just badmouth women. But I can say, I feel that women have a problem with this, or I have a problem with women because of this. And then have a guy say to me, I hear you. I feel you, and I can feel safe. Now, Jamey, why do you feel that way? What is it that's caused you? And how do we get you out of that from here to here? And then we can have a discussion that's rooted in safety, that I wasn't judged. How dare you say such a thing? When you say that, that's only perpetuating this and this and this and this, and then I feel shame, and then I get defensive, and then I'm not willing to grow. We need those spaces, and that's what I mean by safe spaces. But they have to be moderated by somebody or people that have true intention of why those safe spaces. It can't just be about getting on the phone. I have a friend that is in a group of white people, and he's an incredible, incredible individual because he's done work. That work has been part of him sharing his hang-ups about black people that he could never say. Because if he said that, he would have been fired, he would have been this, he would have been ostracized, all the stuff. But he had these real thoughts. Where is there a place that he can say that without being the internet or whoever else just saying, how dare you, you're an asshole. So he said, I think black people are lazy. Now, has he said that in a group with me and my siblings and my friends? We'd have been like, what the hell? But he was able to say that to some other white people. They were like, yeah, I hear you. I feel you. My parents used to think the same thing. My neighborhood thought the same thing. My schools taught me the same thing. Of course, that makes sense. You're wrong. And then he had said, someone said to him, a white person said, name me 10 black people that you know. Do you know 10 black people? He was like, yeah, I know. Which ones of those 10 people are lazy? Which ones do you know? Well, my teacher at such school, is he lazy? No. My doctor is a black person. No. The person that works at the store over here is lazy. So he could not name one person that was lazy, and yet he felt that the people were lazy. So, okay, so your experience is not that they're lazy. Where do you think they're getting that from? Anyways, he was able to work through it. And now some years later, he is championing race relations and equality in a way that he never would have been able to had he not had the freedom and safety to do that. So I think we need those spaces to be free of judgment without posturing. If a woman's in a group with me, sometimes with Ben, I'm going to make sure I look good. I'm going to make sure my eyebrows are done and, I'm pressed up because I want to look good.
Yeah.
But if it's you and me, I'm not worried about that as much. So I don't have to posture. I don't have to present in any way except for be vulnerable and honest. And if we don't have those safe spaces, then I don't know if the real work is being done. For people who need it, we all need it, but for people who have to work things to work through. You're listening to the Man Enough Podcast. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, it's Jamey Heath here. Do you exercise often? And do you need to replace electrolytes so that you don't get a cramp or get fatigued? I hear you. That's where Element comes in. Element, spelled LMNT, is a simple, no sugar, artificial ingredients, coloring, gluten, or fillers added electrolyte booster. And it's suited to anyone following keto, low carb, whole foods, or paleo diets. The proof is in the clientele. Element is loved by professional athletes, tech leaders, and exercise enthusiasts alike. Now, recently, I've been focusing on bettering myself, and one of the ways I've been doing that is by increasing my daily exercise, and with that increase, I could often use some help getting hydrated and building up my electrolytes. Element is great for me because it has zero sugar. It's got a clean, fresh taste, simple ingredients, and rich flavors like chocolate caramel. Element is completely risk-free. If the salty taste isn't to your liking, simply share it with a friend and get your money back. So head to drinkelement.com/manenough, and for a limited time, get a free Element sample pack with any purchase. That's drinklmnt.com/manenough. Thank you to Element for supporting our show. All right, welcome back to the Man Enough Podcast.
Do you think that's why so many men and young boys are gravitating towards Andrew Tate, is that there's not enough safe spaces for men, which in itself is a controversial question? Because I think what you said is in my relationships with men, the biggest barrier to our intimacy and connection is their own attachment to being a good guy. And that I know deep down there are some things that feel unacceptable for them to say or admit to, and they don't, and I think they're avoiding it unless they have a space where they can acknowledge it, move through it, and then move beyond it, it actually stays with them. And then it comes out in all these different ways, maladaptive ways, right? That women feel in relationships with men. And then it ends up ending the relationship instead of, I think what you're talking about, which is men on men healing, which then improves their relationships with women.
Yeah. And sorry, man, I know you want to say something. They have to be people that will hold us accountable, though. I don't mean echo chambers.
But that's what's happening with the Andrew Tates. They're not.
I don't mean safe spaces where I can say, man, women are blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
And then a guy's like, all right. And then another guy says, right. And I feel safe to say that amongst the guys. Okay, sure, I can feel safe. I mean spaces where you're being challenged, healthy conflict, safety to do work, which means at the end of it, someone holds me accountable.
Mm-hmm. Well, that seems like a very important, the key point.
I think community and values. So there's a book in the 1920s written by a Spanish writer named Jose Ortega y Gasset. It's called Rebellion of the Masses. Highly recommend it. He separates the world into two people. There are masses and minority. Minority has nothing to do with race or ethnicity. It's minority is like if you're a spinal surgeon, you are a minority. You had to go. Not everyone can just go and do spinal surgery. If you're a lawyer, someone say you're a minority, right? You had to do certain study that puts you in the minority, and then everyone else is the masses. And he wrote this in the 20s. And then he predicted, which I think is social media, he said, and then one day a microphone will come along that will allow the masses to think they are minority. And what the masses will do is they will start to gather around their disagreements more than their agreements. Mm-hmm. Because there is so much more power, and there's been writing and studies about this, and, we can go to bell hooks and living from love. It is so much easier to live from hate and to gather around our disagreements and what we don't have and what's not fair and what's not right than it is to operate from community, love, higher value systems, softer skills. Men groups are smaller groups, but then you have the thousands and the millions by the masses saying it's not fair. I want this. Andrew Tate's right. Trump is right. These are right. These alt-rights are right. We're gathering around our hates, around our disagreements, around what we're saying is unfair. And so I think about communities. I think about value systems. What do we really value as a society? And I always love that, Jamey, the first time I was on here, you were like, all right, but what's the action? What are we doing? What's the thing? What's the actionable thing? That's how you open this, right? Actionable things. And so is an actionable thing, and I think about this in terms of the planet even, right? Like, is an actionable thing, like we're all just going to separate into smaller and smaller communities until we can learn to come back and be a whole? Like, is that what it is? Just more and more smaller communities of shared value systems? We need more and more men's group, women's groups, and then maybe one woman's group meets a man's group, and they make a new group, and then we do that.
I think it's both. I think we always need to have them. Mm-hmm. We're always going to be. The garden is always going to have different flowers in the garden. We never want the flowers to be one garden. We don't want it to be one red rose. It's always going to be different, and each one require a little bit of different water and fertilizer and care. The purpose is to have this beautiful garden where all of them are flourishing and all are equal and beautiful. But we don't want to conflate that with, like, I always talk about that equality is not sameness. We don't want the flowers to be the same. We want them to be different. We want to be flowers of one garden, all blooming. But in order to do so, there will be times when you're going to have to give different care to the red rose versus to the yellow lily or the such and such, right? And maybe those are those groups sometimes so that we can make sure we're applying the love and care that each one needs so that the whole garden can flourish.
Right.
So it's both, I think.
Right. And that, like, again, just in our day, even with our friends, right? If they are, my tick is right. By the way, I say right all the time because I want you to agree with me before I take a risk and continue with my thought because
She's saying her tick is right. She says right.
Your tick is right. The word
I'm
right.
asking you to right?
Right? Oh, yes. Well, because that's something that you had talked about before also, that women, what women do well is they acknowledge and confirm things you're saying, and men don't do it as much. Right. So you were looking for that, and I have failed.
No.
Well, I also think
I
think with right in association with people who say right or in association to safe spaces is, I think even more than safety, what we want is to be seen. And when we are truly seen, we are safe. And I think that's what's every example you described was someone seeing someone without judgment, without consequence, Like, I see you. That's what they're saying. I see you. Let's talk about it. You know, and so when we say right, whether it's a tick or it's like, do you see me? Right?
Yeah.
You know, right? You see me, right? Please, because that's all we all want is to be seen.
Well,
Man
with
or
that,
woman.
what did you want to be seen
So
about?
many things. I already forgot my point, but I will pivot because my sister wrote a children's book. She just wrote a children's book. It's her first book. My sister teaches elementary school students socio-emotional learning, and so her entire career is devoted to helping children understand themselves, understand each other, and work through conflict. And the book is about my grandparents came to Canada as refugees, and so it's all about a new child a child that's at a new school coming from a war-torn country and is not being accepted, and all the other kids are actually I mean, what's interesting is that it's not humans, it's animals, and she chose to make it about a wolf. In stories about kids, often the wolf is the villain and the bad guy, and so the other kids have heard all these stories about wolves, and so they're reverberating it back to this little wolf that is new at the school. And we see, and it's really a story about how to resolve conflict. And one of the things that she really embedded in that story that she's told me is something that she really experiences all the time with children in schools, is that they, even when using certain slurs, which are homophobic, right, using the F word and being sort of caught, right, doing that, once they do sit down with the child, very often they do not even know what that means. Like, they are not, right, we assign intent to the person based on what we know and our level of knowledge and what we would do, when, like, this is a different person from you. And it's not to say that anyone who's using homophobic slurs shouldn't be, again, held accountable. And even in that moment, like, it's not about not holding the child accountable, but actually being curious about why they use that word. Where did they hear that? What is going on? And one of the things that she really has taught me so much is to also understand that in any kind of conflict, it's not just, first of all, like, we often just go to the victim, right? We go to the child that's being bullied and we, focus our attention on them, rightfully so. We want to provide safety and empathy for someone who's been a victim of anything. But then there's the perpetrator, right? And if we actually want to change as a society, we actually need to devote equal attention. Or even maybe in certain instances, some people have to devote more attention to the perpetrator and trying to understand what they did. And then there's also there's also the third person, which is the witness. Very often, there is a witness or many witnesses to any kind of conflict, and they're also going through something too as a result of it. And I think about it a lot in the current culture that we're in, again, where there's a lot of shouting, there's a lot of, whatever you want to call it, cancel culture, mob mentality, and we're witnessing that. Like, even if you've never been quote unquote canceled, just the mere sort of fact that you're witnessing so much of it in big and small ways, right? Like, whether it's a celebrity on social media that you're seeing, or even in your own life, like, that also has impacts on us. And so I guess my point, again, coming back to safe spaces, and it's like, or learning how to have conflict, like learning that it's normal, not just normal, but like, if you're disagreeing, it means you're having a conversation. And it means you're probably also actually seeing each other. And my favorite conversations on our show, and between us, I mean, you're new, so, watch out. But like, I feel like the growth that we've had together and separately as a result of our conflict and our openness to conflict. And I say this all the time, but I really, because I talk about it all the time to even my friends and whatnot, like, I'm like, everything that I feel, I say on air, and they keep it. Like, they keep it in and they take it in and they respond and we have a conversation, and that's why it works. Like, we grow every time we've had conflict, we've grown from it. And I think that, but it's scary to do. it's easier to just be like, I'm just going to bottle it up. I'm going to complain about it to someone else, and I'm just not going to bring it up. And I actually think, this is something that I think particularly women need to work on. Like, we don't want to be inconvenient. We don't want to, we want to be perfect. White women, oh my God. Like, Jesus. Like, so much of the obstacle to I think growth when it comes to anti-racism work for white women is like clinging to this idea that you're a good girl and that you're a good white woman and that you're different, when it's like, no, like you're not.
Amen to you're different, because I know that, I know those people. I'm different. Like, that's such a scary two words. Like, but I'm different. I mean, that's right there with I got a black friend. Like, it's right there with that.
What when you hear that, like, what do those people do that's like so unsettling, or again, like, because I think people don't necessarily get this, and I only really got it once it happened to me with men, where I was like, oh, I do this, and I'm unsafe when I have that mentality. So I'm just like, if you can share.
I think it's there. Okay, so I follow this thing called engaged Buddhism. We talked about that a little bit. One of the tenets is that you must engage with suffering on a daily basis. That's part of it. You have to engage with suffering. And one of the dangers with social media, to me, is that it's too easy to fall into your own vacuum. Like, you're constantly fed yourself. You're fed the algorithm of yourself.
Right.
So you're fed your preacher. You're fed your goodness. You're fed your I'm different. You're fed your Black Lives Matter signs. What would it look like to be fed something else? To engage with the suffering. To not say you're different, but to actually live and embrace other people's existence. Engage with it on a daily basis. Don't talk about it. Be about it. Right? And so if you have I have a black friend and I'm different, to me are very similar in the sense of saying, like, I know I marched, so I'm good. Like, they're constantly looking for the pass. No, show up to the places, engage with it on a daily basis, but not to say you're different, just to be there, be in it.
Love that. See?
You'd be called
Title of this episode is ticks.
Yeah,
I need
ticks.
to find mine. If y'all figure it out, let me know.
There's something that you had said, or everything that's being said, which I'd love to point out, which is there's all these traumas happening throughout the world, conversations. And we know Joy DeGruy, Dr. Joy DeGruy, shares this a lot about trauma and how it works. It's obvious if something happens to a person. If you get shot, you have trauma. If I'm the one who shot you, I have trauma, right? And oftentimes, if you got shot and we're scared, you're going to talk to someone about it and work through it. I'm the one who shot you. There's consequences. I talk through it. I'm forced to have conversations, okay? But we're not the only ones. What about the people that witnessed it, right? So now someone witnesses it, was not hurt themselves, but now they have trauma. Yeah. But most of the time, the people that witness don't have a conversation about it. They don't go to therapy about it. They just bottle it up. They don't think they were affected. They then treat their children differently. Oh, like, be careful, don't go outside, you might get shot, whatever. So now that their children have trauma or are affected by the fact that I witnessed something, so my child is raised differently because of what I witnessed.
Yeah.
So unless everybody is engaged in conversation all the time.
And you just made me think of my pops. So, like,
is that right?
Oh my gosh, you kidding me?
I've
never heard of this. I know trauma from, like, Body Keeps the Score. He says it's a thing you can't leave. It stays in you, right? Like, you have to be able to leave the experience. And so thinking about not the person who did the action, the person who received the action, but the witness, and then how that's handed down to the child. Like, for so long, my father has carried so much Latino machismo negativity. Don't tell anyone your good news. Don't do, right? Believing in so much of this old school mentality that I had to fight for so long to say, you're wrong. Like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. But now hearing this, I'm like, oh no, you're just a witness of horrible things. And you never got to talk about it with anyone. It's wild.
It's so wild. And we're doing that all the time. Yeah. Boys are witnessing the way women are treated, or and maybe their parents aren't necessarily it, but it's on social media, it's in the world, it's such and such, we're witness to it. Well, I'm not engaged, I don't treat women badly, I don't do this, I'm not actually the perpetrator. But you're witnessing all this stuff in dialogue. And then unless you're in conversation about it, you then store what you store, then you treat other people accordingly, you raise your children accordingly, all this stuff. So we have to be mindful, I believe, in having not just the conversations of those that are experiencing suffering directly, but everyone, because we're all witnessing everything every day. We're
The
all
power of the witness.
the power of the witness.
The
And you were
power
talking
of the
about that.
witness. Oof.
And there's a thing too with algorithms, like because you mentioned it. It's a strange idea that, first of all, and props to my sister who teaches me everything about emotions. She often, because sometimes I'll have a lot of bad reactions to something I post. I know it happens on our account, I'm Man Enough. It happens to anyone who's, sort of posts a lot. And my sister was like, you never know the emotional state of the person when they posted the thing. And you also never know the emotional state of the person when they see the thing. And when you think about something like an algorithm that's like, boom, boom, like throwing at you everything from, a deep kind of analysis of trauma, of a deeply traumatized person about, and giving you all of that intensity, to like a reunification between a man and his mom because he's been in prison for 20 years and like the trauma and seeing that, beautiful moment, but also this tragedy, to then a Jordan Peterson clip about, women shouldn't wear makeup at work. And it is strange that we are kind of purviewed to so much. And sometimes I feel like some of these conversations that we're coming into, particularly when it comes to gender equality or inequality, Julia Fox in an interview talked about how she's not dating men anymore. She's not having sex or dating men anymore. And, because of basically I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect of, there's no difference between a wife and a prostitute. And and then a bunch of comments, woohoo, you go girl. Like,
Wow.
Yeah. It's a stance. Yeah, it's definitely a position. And
One that you agree with?
well, I personally don't agree with that. I don't feel,
Also, she's saying being a prostitute is a bad thing?
I'm like both of them, both a wife and a prostitute to me deserve our respect.
Yeah.
Like I think that's my headline on that. I do think this is part of a larger trend within a lot of women online and just women in general of like giving up on men. And giving up on intimacy and giving up on relationships. We're seeing it in the data around homeownership. We're seeing it with women, choosing to freeze their eggs and to build a family on their own. And we're seeing it with sex rates of just like men and women going down. And so I think that I think it's as a result of isolation. I think it's part of this larger trend of people just reverting back to what feels safe and conflating, I think, safety with something else. But then I also have compassion for her. If I'm going to approach it from a compassionate perspective, I'm like, I don't know what happened to her that day. She used to be a dominatrix and was basically a sex worker. I don't know what happened to her for her to say that. When I saw it, I received it in a way that I was like, this is so much and this is so extreme and like I don't agree with this. But then on another day where there's a lot of sexual violence history in my family, like where that's activated, like maybe I would receive her post in a different way. I think social media creates this, we know it's a barrage of information and we know like there's way too much coming at us, but it's also like an emotional slot machine. I think there's no such thing as a safe space on the internet because the algorithm is deciding what's coming at you and the algorithm doesn't know how you're feeling that day. It doesn't know that your dad just died and it's going to show you, something that's, or it doesn't know that you're actually in a great mood and it'll show you negative stuff and you're like, okay, all of a sudden I'm feeling morose. So anyway, algorithms are scary.
All the more to give emphasis to the word witness, right? Like we need to be more conscious of what we're witnessing and what we're choosing not to witness, right? Like what are you engaging with on a daily basis that is not your choice, algorithm? What are you engaging with on a daily basis that is your choice?
Right.
What literature are you taking in? Who are you hanging out with?
Right.
What spaces are you walking into? I'm just I'm really caught up on this witness word right now.
Yeah.
What we witness specifically on our show, which is called Man Enough, and the purpose of it is to talk about, we don't like to use the word toxic masculinity because I don't believe in that, but I do believe that we can use masculinity in a toxic way. We have to be able to have those conversations. I won't use these terms, safe spaces with you anymore, but to do it safely, whatever that means, so we can talk about all of this stuff so that my son, who's 20, and is putting it all together, and he's a fantastic young man, but still putting it together. Like when I was 20, you know, like who I am today, I had the basic makeup of who I was, but I've grown so much. So will he. But I want him to walk through the world more right than I was. I want him to be more aligned with caring about the whole and caring about all of us. And then therefore he does the work on himself, and he constantly is reevaluating and, you know, bringing himself to account each day so that he can reflect and be different tomorrow. By the way, let me say this one thing too. I have always considered myself to be generally someone that is safe to speak to.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my life, I'm being challenged because there are some feelings with some people that don't feel that I'm safe.
Oh.
I don't mean physically. I don't mean like
Right.
nothing like that. I don't mean that. And it's breaking my heart because I care about that so much, because I've been so good at it. I think because other people have said I'm good at it, because other people call me to go and handle situations because I can do it in a safe way. And there's a situation where right now I'm dealing with, oh, wait, this group doesn't feel safe. Now, one, it's my ego. Like, damn it, I thought I was good at it. But also more than that, it's like I want to be that. So I've had to reflect, like, what have I done? What haven't I done? How can I be better? I don't know why I went on that tangent right now, other than to say, like, we've never arrived. Like, as good as I might think I do one thing, we've never arrived. All it takes is one little left turn, and, you know, now you're not perceived as that, or you didn't do that as well.
Yeah.
So as men, my son is never going to arrive. It's a daily diligence to be better.
Yeah.
So that we can be safe for ourselves and for others, and for you, Liz.
Are your sons in the same type of groups you're in, these men's groups?
My son is 20. My other son is almost 7. So no. But yes, my oldest son is. Same, yes. He is well-versed in having open dialogue and conversation with other men.
For listeners, how do they cultivate these groups, or how do they find them or start them? Or you're in multiple, so what's the process?
Well, I believe that they are grassroots. They're not like one you look up on the internet and then go there.
Okay.
To me, that's not a safe. I mean, that's not true. There are 12-step programs that I've been involved in that are safe, and you can look those up. But safe meaning, okay, Chris, you have friends.
I do.
And you call them and be like, all right, look, on Monday nights for the next month, I know we all have stuff to work through. I'm working through stuff. 8 o'clock, my house, let's have some pizza or whatever it is we eat. And instead of watching a game or playing this or doing that, we're going to have an hour of just talking about what's on our hearts and mind in the spirit of like masculinity or racism or marriage or whatever it is that, you know, you might think. And I would bet most of those friends would show up. And then the one that you didn't think had anything is like, here's you share something. It's like, oh, you know, I was thinking about that too. And that becomes safe because it's organic and it's grassroots. And then they grow. And then you do that every Monday for a month. And then David, your friend David, will be like, hey, can I bring my friend Scott? Because this last month has been really great. That's how I think they're built. Those are the ones that I'm involved in. Some intimate ones and some larger ones that have grown in that way, where an individual who cares about change initiates it and does it.
And what are the rules? What are the like big for people who
Big
are
rules.
starting? Yeah, big rules of engagement.
This cannot be a place where you just perpetuate and have people that are like-minded just to bash on other people. That doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So that to me is not the safe space. Safe space is where can I share my truth without posturing, have someone hold the space for that, and then also the parameters are, where's the goal? The goal is to be better. If this is a men's group, we want to be better men. Well, what are those things to be better men? Let's point them out, and then that's our roadmap. So we can be honest. You can say what you need to, so long as that everything is framed at the end of the day to get here. Though that's just generally the rule. And we're not just going to you're not going to talk about your wife and I'm going to jump back on you and your wife. But you can tell me, my wife is pissing me off. I'll be like, I hear you. My wife doesn't understand that I such and such, and I think she's wrong, and she expects me to do this and this and this. And I'll be like, yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, we're not all
Right.
going to jump on that and
Right.
then say, oh, your wife says blah, blah,
Yes.
blah.
Poor
She
you.
just did this. Poor
Yes.
you. It's
Right.
like, oh, I feel you. Fully understand what you're feeling.
Yes.
Me too sometimes, man.
Yeah.
But how is that working out for you? And how is that working out for her? And let's look at the bigger picture. And how do we get you from this stage to the next? And just honest conversations get us there. But we have to hold each other accountable and have some rules that where's the benchmark? What are you trying to get to?
I'm hearing shared intimacy.
Shared intimacy. I
That's
like
what
that
I'm
term.
hearing. A lot of, the space to share, which is, we have a lot to share that we often keep to ourselves. And then intimacy that's intimate. That's intimacy with other men. It's like these groups can provide us a place to practice and expand our intimacy muscles. Like that it's so much more than the one-on-one. That it can be a group setting among your peers, among people you don't even know sometimes, to flex this intimacy muscle and to strengthen it and to soften it all at the same time. That's what I'm hearing. Shared intimacy.
I love that.
Yeah.
Shared intimacy.
And that truth without accountability is not truth, right? Or it's just enabling.
Exactly. It's just enabling.
Even in the ethos of a 12-step program, it is about, talking again. There could be people pissing you off or a thing that's external to you that is creating problems for you, but it always comes back to you, right? What am I going to do? And it's not I think this is the distinction that I know it took me a while to understand. It's not a self-blame, right? To take responsibility. If something's happening to you and again, I think this is a real thing for women where they go through something with a guy and the guy clearly has done something wrong or done something hurtful or harmful and they're hurt. I feel like a lot of women listen to each other and be like, oh my God, he's such a dick. And you're so amazing. And let's go get ice cream. Right. And that's helpful. I'm saying that's better than not talking about it to anybody. But I think that the next stage of healing is realizing and this is going to be controversial, but there are no victims, just volunteers. And how have you volunteered to be in this situation? What part are you playing? And it's not, and that sounds like I'm victim blaming, but it's actually not. It's what thing is that working for you? And what can we change? Because we can't change the other person. That will keep you locked into codependency for years. To be invested in their behavior and be focused on their behavior instead of yours is a great recipe for misery. And so I think that accountability part for men is huge. And I think for women is just as important. So that you don't end up just being again, Julia Fox can do whatever she wants. But I'm never going to date men ever again. When my friend says that to me, I want to, go deeper into that. And will that really make you, and maybe it will, but I don't know.
I got a great skill from a couples counselor we saw, and she said, sometimes you need to ask the question, do you just want to be heard or do you want solutions?
Yeah.
Right.
And it makes such a difference. Do you just want to be heard or do you want to talk about this and engage in it?
And sometimes you do want to just be heard.
Yeah, and that's
That's
it.
true.
And it's cool. Let's get ice cream.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Let's get
Yeah.
ice cream.
We have some rules with I have a couple friends that have gotten divorced recently, and there's about 10 of us guys that gather around them.
Okay.
And the rules are this. We get together. You get one session or one talk to talk about your struggles with your wife. After that, we don't want to hear anything about her. It's only got to be about you. I love that. You get one. You get it out. And by the way, she's our friend too, so you can't throw under the... You can say the truth.
Right.
But you're not going to...
Yeah.
Because I'm protecting her too.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I want you to feel safe to share it. But after that, every other conversation is, I need you to spend 100% of your time on your 20% or your 80%, whatever it is. But we're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
right? So
I
be
love
heard and then result.
Coming in with the rules.
Shared
of
intimacy.
steel.
Shared intimacy.
I love it.
I think we're running out of time here, but you were going to read a poem, weren't you?
Oh,
Do you want to close us out with this
Close
poem?
it.
this is my favorite poem. I think it fits these conversations. I mean, look, I might read this and you're going to want to talk about it for another 20 minutes. It's pretty good. These poems, she said, by Robert Bringhurst. These poems, she said, are poems with no love in them. These are the poems of a man who would leave his wife and his child because they made noise in his study. These are the poems of a man who would murder his mother to claim the inheritance. These are the poems of a man like Plato, she said, meaning something I did not comprehend but which nevertheless offended me. These are the poems of a man who would rather sleep with himself than with women, she said. These are the poems of a man with eyes like a draw knife, with hands like pickpockets' hands, woven of water and logic and hunger, with no strand of love in them. These poems are heartless as birdsong, as unmeant as elm leaves, which if they love, love only the wide blue sky and the air and the idea of an elm leaf. Self-love is an ending, she said, not a beginning. Love means love of the thing sung, not of the song or the singing. These poems, she said, you are, he said, beautiful. That is not love, she said rightly. That is not love.
Wow. We need a whole episode on that.
Wow.
I
love it.
I've been reading that poem for like 10 years.
Well, that makes sense. It explains in part of why you are who you are, because you've been reading this. That's part of your DNA.
Damn.
Oftentimes, before I identified myself as anything, I was an artist. Art before Brown Man, before writer, before Chris even, before Dominican, before New York. I'm an artist. I sacrificed everything to be an artist. And eyes like a draw knife. A man, who would kill someone for the inheritance. We take and we take and we take for this definition of who we are. And when I think of manliness and in this space, we take and we take and we take to build our manliness. I'm this kind of man. I'm this kind of man. No, or I'm different.
Mm-hmm.
Eyes like a draw knife. I'm different. Look what I did. I'm different. That's not love. That's not intimacy. That's not showing up in the world. That's writing a poem that has no heart in it. It's trying to get the next hit or the next like on social media or the next piece of art. It's looking at everything to gain something from it. Like the world becomes your teacher. The world becomes something you take from versus something you give to, versus something you engage with. And if you want a life with love in it, you have to show up and engage with it, not just take from it. So that's why I've been reading that poem for 10 years.
Beautiful, beautiful answer. Beautiful reason. All right. Well, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Listen, those of you who like what you're listening to, hopefully there's more than don't.
If you like our ticks,
come
back
ticks,
for more.
Those ones and things, we'd love to have you back. Please take care of those around you.
Mm-hmm.
This is controversial, I believe, more than even yourself. That's what I believe.
We're going to go deep into
That's
that.
a host episode. Why is that controversial?
Well, because, people like
no,
taking
I
myself
know.
first,
Yeah,
but-
that's a good one.
and follow us on all the places you can follow us, like Spotify and Apple and
Yes,
manenough.com/podcast, YouTube. Get Liz's book, For the Love of Men. What's
And
your book called
Justin's
again?
book.
Brown Enough.
Yes,
Brown
Brown
Enough.
Enough.
That's right. Listen to
Get
his
Chris's
podcast.
book, get
Brown
Liz's
Enough.
book.
Yes,
Listen to Brown
Justin's
Enough.
book,
Get
even though he's
Justin's
not
book.
here.
Get all the
Yes.
books.
All the books except mine.
Forthcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It has been a pleasure. We'll see you next time. I'm Jamey Heath,
I'm Liz Plank.
And Chirstopher Rivas.
and this is Man Enough.